Okay, let's start talking about Gentlemen Prefer Blonde. That's next
Yes.
on the list, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is.
Okay, so this also features.
Well, you want to talk about, we should mention, we didn't mention it with Monkey Business and it doesn't matter, but spoilers, we
Oh,
spoil everything we
spoilers.
talk
Yeah,
about.
we
If you hear a
spoil
movie title
everything.
come up and you don't want it to be spoiled, you may want to skip ahead.
Yeah, and it's there's not a ton exactly to spoil in this movie. It kind of is what you think it is, but
Yeah.
anyways, so this stars Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. It also has, and it's also directed by Howard Hawks, like Monkey Business. It also has Charles Coburn in it, who was
Again.
the guy in the other movie, and
Yeah.
he's actually pretty fun in this movie. This movie is most famous for the song "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend,"
Right.
which is a great number.
So we're going to talk about that in a moment, but do you want to summarize the movie? Do you want me to
Yeah,
summarize it?
yeah, I'll do this one too. I think I can manage this one. So
Okay.
Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell are showgirls, I guess.
Mhm.
They do dance numbers and stuff. They're not the Vegas version of a showgirl. They're just like they dance, they sing, whatever. And Marilyn has a boyfriend, I guess. I don't know.
A rich
He's
fiance.
a fiance, right? They're actually he is her fiance, and he's very rich, and she's all about the money and the diamonds and the stuff, and she's trying to teach Jane Russell's character that she should be for that as well. Anyways, Marilyn and her end up on a cruise ship, and it's
They're going to Europe.
they're going to Europe, and it's a musical, and it's about Marilyn Monroe trying to get more money and more power, and kind of not seeing that there is something behind money, and it's not all just about money. And that's kind of the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
there's plot develops and stuff, but that's basically it.
Yeah, there's some romance. There's Jane Russell. There's a guy
Jane Russell
trying.
meets a guy, and
There's
he
a
may or
guy
may
trying to spy on Marilyn. I think it's for the fiance's father. There's some
yeah
intrigue, but that's not why you're really watching this movie. You're watching it for the musical numbers and
yes
seeing Jane Russell and Marilyn Monroe kind of be badass. I
yeah.
appreciated this way more on the second viewing.
So did I. It's funny because I said that to you, and then you watched it
Yeah,
and had the same
despite the
thing.
fact that if you rent below the SD version of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes on Redbox, you were getting the non-Marilyn Monroe singing version of Diamonds Are a Girl. There was something wonky about the audio the whole time. It's 5-1 mixed to up, like they did something wrong when they ported it over or whatever. So the audio was weird the whole time. The singing numbers were loud, the dialogue was low. But then we hit Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, and nothing is coming out of Marilyn's mouth. She just mouthing words without sound coming out if you're listening to this.
Right.
And it turns it into this jazzy little number without any song.
That's
And
hilarious.
then when Jane Russell does it, it dips in and out some too. I'm not sure that I didn't lose the music in some scenes. It was an odd experience. I'm glad I'd seen the movie before. It was very strange. So if you want a surreal experience, rent the SD version on Redbox.
Yeah.
But I have kind of a rant that connects to later another movie. I think the movie we're talking about next, which is 7 Year Itch. But I realized what lens to view this through, and I think that helped me enjoy it more. So, you ready?
Take it away.
The 50s sucked and they were crazy, and that's when like the war is over, we're prosperous, we're going after communists, we're adding In God We Trust, we're trying to conform. This is like the most like shallow interpretation of the 50s. I'm not a history expert, but I think the 50s were terrible, and I'm glad I didn't live in them. I think, we're getting to the Cold War stuff.
Right.
The studio system in Hollywood is hanging on to the Hays Code, even though societally we were growing out of the Hays Code. And eventually we'll hit the 70s when things just go bonkers. But as a result, movies to me, like mainstream studio broad audience movies, get crazy. And are we swearing? I forget.
You're allowed like a swear, I guess, an episode roughly.
I'll save it. Let's just say they are bat crazy. And
Right.
Gentlemen Prefer Blondes falls into the kind that I like. And I've decided to make you watch Gigi, which I think qualifies. You found West Side Story very strange, and that's from the early 60s.
Yes.
Gypsy to me is another one where it's like we're being, we're singing and dancing in Technicolor about stuff that's actually quite dark.
Yeah.
So, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes has Jane Russell singing about the fact that no one in the Olympic team wants to have sex with her. Those aren't the actual lyrics, but if you look at it head on, that is what we're singing about. Diamonds Are
Go
the
ahead.
Girl's Best Friend opens with bondage ladies hanging from a chandelier. Men shoot themselves in the head with guns. And Marilyn Monroe sings about how the fact that you basically need to let yourself be sexually exploited to get money out of it. And that is that is my sweet spot for the 50s mainstream stuff, because on one hand you're like it makes you you're like, what is this? And then you think about it and you're like, oh, this is crazy. This is like ridiculous.
I have a theory on this too. Keep
7
going.
Year Itch is going to be kind of the other end of the spectrum, but we'll talk more about that when we get to it.
Yeah, and I think the chandelier ladies, I don't think they're hanging from anything. I think they're on top of platforms. But
they're like, they're holding on, they're bent outwards. It is bondagey. Like, do not argue with me about that.
No, it is bondagey. I just don't know that they're actually hanging from the ceiling.
But everything's bright and colorful and cheerful. I mean, this is the era that brought this, I think, The Bad Seed, where God kills a small child. So this falls in line with my, like, you have to look past the glamour and glitz and realize what is really happening.
I have a theory, and I want a film historian to like actually tell me what's what about this, but it feels like basically old white men who've been, the head of studios through the, from the 30s into, the 50s. I mean, I'm sure it's not the same people all the time, but it's like, it's roughly the same group of like older white men doing these kind of things, or maybe just crazy white men, I don't know, who are sort of running these things. And they're like, oh, we need to get butts and seats. And so they're like, well, how do I feel about this? Let's do it like this. And then you're watching this and you're like, these people were nuts. And like, is this what the 30s and 40s were really like behind the scenes? Like, that's like my feelings about Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and like, just like the 7 Year Itch too. It's like, this is what some like nutso older white guy is thinking about these things, kind of.
Well, I think Howard Hawks had been working for some time, right? Let's see.
His career, I think, goes from
53. Like... He was born in 96, so he's in his late 50s at this point. And in that time, when you were in your late 50s, you were like 70, right? Compared to now. So.
I think so, yeah. Well, and plus, but it's also like, it's like what the studio is letting you make. And like, you've got to, studio interference has always been a thing. So like, the studio must have a say in what's going on. And this is what they're putting out.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, the world is maturing, but you're not allowed to show that in films, so they're like sneaking it in, because there's some progressive stuff in here. There's Jane Russell is singing about it, wanting to make love, basically, but she's also interested in the entire Olympic team, and they're very like, the sexuality is more, it's ultimately not progressive to me, because like they get safely married to some very boring men. But
like even Marilyn Monroe, I think it's probably the the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend number. Like they're singing about on it. It's like kind of, I wonder if a part of the reason this movie was appealing and is appealing is there's an honesty to it. Like marriage for a lot of women now, even potentially, but especially as we go backwards in time, was about money and social status. So like there's an honesty to like, I want to marry a millionaire because I want, to live a good life, and that's the only way I can do it. Well,
and I think she even points out, like, so why is it okay for men to want to marry beautiful women but not for women?
I think she even references herself. She's like, men want to marry me because I'm pretty. Why is it wrong that I want to marry someone for their money? Which is still kind of an issue and kind of a thing that's in culture. So it's like, I think I was kind of like, there's ultimately the film isn't progressive, I think, but there is an aspect to it that like, I think has appealed to people since it was made, that
I
is
think it
an
has
honesty.
I think it has its progressive moments, but it's,
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
yeah.
it's still the 50s.
Oh,
I
totally.
think Jane Russell's great in it. I really like Jane Russell.
She's really good.
She has, both of them have a statuesque quality that I don't feel has been popular for a long time. They've got, like, in that black dress that she's doing, the isn't there anyone here for love, or whatever that one is, Jane
Yeah.
Russell's song. Um, you know, it makes her shoulders look broad. She's definitely got big boobs. I mean, they've got trim
Yeah.
waists. I'm not saying that they're not. They're
Yeah, no.
hourglass shaped, and that's, you know, I enjoyed. And she just has. They have a big. Both of them have a kind of a presence. I think Marilyn looks a little smaller. Um,
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that there's a movie star, a female movie star that quite has that right now. I can't think of
yeah,
one off the top of my head. Maybe there is.
yeah. So that's interesting. But do you want to talk about Marilyn's performance a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, since this is ultimately about Marilyn, this is probably so Don't Bother to Knock is completely different, and that's my favorite like acting performance of hers. But
Mm-hmm.
of kind of the dumb blonde roles, which is a lot of what else she gets to do, this
Which
is
is
my
the 4
favorite.
movies we're talking about today are all dumb blondes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think next week. Well, I'm not sure, but at least for this, like this is like my favorite. Like she's a dumb blonde, air quotes, and she's
Mm-hmm.
really not stupid. Like she doesn't
No.
know things, but like she's more world wise. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like she's clever. It's just that she doesn't know a lot. Like she's not stupid.
But she's
So
also only interested in certain things. I think that's
yeah.
basically what they say later is like, I'm smart about the things I need to be smart about, and I'm not
Yeah.
about the
And
others,
again,
you
there's
know?
an honesty to that. That the thing to me is there's an honesty to this movie. Even the really dark, like shooting yourself over a woman thing, like there's a bizarre kind of honesty to that. Like a lot
Yeah.
of men are really toxic that way, where they like,
Yeah.
if I do, they don't get the woman they want, like it's just that's it. It's
Yeah.
there's so much love I have for her, and they're
Yeah.
out of their minds. So like there's an honesty to her performance and being like, she's pretty smart. Like people make fun of models and like people who are really into like beauty as being stupid, and it's like they're not stupid, they're just really interested in one specific thing. Like you don't call,
Yeah.
like I know a lot about movies and not necessarily a lot about other things, but people don't necessarily go out of their way to call me stupid,
Yeah,
right?
well, you think about the Cary Grant character in Monkey Business, and that's the character he plays, and they call him an absent-minded professor because he's a professor, he's supposed to be smart, but he's pretty stupid about a lot of things in those
Yeah, and
movies,
so
and yet he's called an
no,
absent-minded professor, which is more like a backhanded compliment.
yeah, and
Um,
like for some reason if you're young and pretty and blonde, like you get to be called a dumb blonde. And
yeah,
so I don't know, but like she's Marilyn Monroe is pretty great in this movie. She's her line deliveries are great. The whole like how she reacts to things, like she does some good acting in How to Marry a Millionaire, which we'll talk about later. But
yeah,
like she's, I think this is like she's got the right, like her comic timing is the best in this. Her like her kind of like cheating elegance kind of stuff is the best in this. You know, her like the writing might be better for her, which also helps. But this
yeah,
really, like, she's so this movie is so fun. Is kind of so fun in general. You have to look past some of the problematic stuff, but like it's fun and it's colorful, and like
yeah.
she is definitely like the cherry of the fun and colorful.
Yeah, I still wish I mentioned it, I think, in Monkey Business that, you know, it's one of all three of the ones we're talking about from here forward. She's just paired against, and
Yeah,
I'll talk about it more with the 7 Year Itch, but which I think is our next conversation.
it's the either one. I haven't
No,
had a
How to
very
Marry a Millionaire is there, so I'll talk about it after that. But
yeah.
How to Marry a Millionaire is almost worse because there is some romance to it. It's just they're very. It's weird because I feel like Marilyn, like they think their audience for these movies are men. So they pair her with like these men that men can, you know, like I feel like I'm an ordinary man and I can get Marilyn Monroe because, you know,
Yeah,
I
she
mean
that's
this guy's a millionaire, but he looks he's not, they've got him in
yeah,
glasses. They're not making him look like a
particularly
Cary Grant
attractive
or a
or
Clark Gable or anything
yeah.
like that. He seems like he's not that bright either. Um, you know, but as a woman, like I think Marilyn Monroe had a lot of female fans too, but maybe, I mean, I remember.
I'm curious, like what, like, because she, again, that's the honesty thing. Like, I wonder if a part of the reason she was so successful, and it seems across gender, whatever your inclination may be, was because, again, honesty. Like,
Yeah.
For women of that era, the way you got status
Right.
was marrying money, and you there was so much focus on beauty because that's how you found a good man and all that,
Right.
or not a good man, but a rich man or whatever.
And Karina Longworth, in her podcast, You Must Remember This, I do remember her talking about Arthur Miller, seeing how she would be mobbed, I think, by male fans.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I had wanted to bring up was one of the differences Karina Longworth mentions between Jean Harlow, who Marilyn Monroe was kind of
Emulating.
modeling herself against, is Jean Harlow was an actress of the 30s, and there was a lot of winking, like,
Yeah.
kind of like, this is all a show, this is all a performance. And Marilyn Monroe doesn't wink.
No.
It's pretty, and I think that leads to some of the weird, I mean, that's a little bit the 50s, is where there's like, there is no winking. It's like, no, really, we're just singing about Jane Russell wanting to have sex with the Olympic team. Like, there's no winking, and it's a little bizarre. But I do think that leads to that kind of honesty that you're talking about.
Yeah, and for some reason, and I have no good reason why, that the Olympic team has always seemed, them and that number and the whole thing has always seemed vaguely like homosexual, sort of like homoerotic. Right. And I think it's because, like, none of them will have sex with her. I mean, and this is, a pretty base reading of it, but like none of them will have sex with her, and they're always all together, and they're always like sort of with each other. And it's like, there's just something like, I wonder what, like, queer theory, like, if there's been any, writings on it. Because
it has been, but I could be wrong. I mean, they do also seem interested in Jane Russell, but that could just be them kind of no homoing. I don't know.
Yeah, but I like it, for the record. I sort of really enjoy the sort of vague homoeroticness about it, but it's just an interesting sort of like piece of the movie. Yeah, I don't know that I have a ton more to say. I was gonna say, I like her co-lead, the millionaire she's marrying. Of all of them, I actually think he's kind of fun, because like he is kind of sweet. Like, one of the things, the reason she's trying to get this tiara, and that's the whole where all the problems come. We haven't even talked about the plot, because again, it's a musical, it doesn't really matter that much. But like, she's being nice to Charles Coburn, and there's something kind of amusing about the two of them interacting, and like, it's kind of sleazy, but Charles Coburn isn't like a complete pig, like he's piggy, but he's not like so lecherous and icky that it's bad. But like, then the other guy, like, she realizes she actually likes the millionaire she's been courting, and who is and was her fiance at that point in the movie, and it's like, oh well, he's kind of sweet, he's a millionaire, but you can still be a millionaire and be sweet. There's a lot of like kill the rich in the culture right now, and I have my own thoughts about wealth disparity and all that, but like, I don't think millionaires aren't people, and like, it's kind of just as an opposition to like a lot of what's in the culture right now. It's nice to see this sweet guy who's also a millionaire.
Right.
So, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, of this grouping of her kind of heyday of her stupid blonde character, like, this is my favorite of the movies for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this one, I don't think I'd really go back to. I mean, 7 Year Itch, we'll get to. I can't.
I love Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, which is why it's hysterical that it came on, and I was like, where's the singing?
The other movie, this and How to Marry a Millionaire, are often like the ones that people talk about for this group of Marilyn films. And I liked How to Marry a Millionaire, but it kind of it wasn't really my thing. But this one, like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, like, this is fun. I'd watch, if like I could see reasons I'd watch this,